Welcome to this week's episode of Beyond the Broomstick, that podcast that opens up the opportunities and possibilities that spirituality can bring to you in your everyday life. If we haven't met before, my name is Matilda. I am a professional psychic medium here in Australia, as well as a spiritual advisor and psychic advisor. I started this podcast to make spirituality easy to understand, take a little bit of the fear factor away, and introduce topics that can take away anxiety, fear, help you live an easier, more peaceful life. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about a little bit about what's going on in the news lately and my psychic input into that. I'm going to be talking about ego. Now, previously in season 1, I did talk about how ego can affect mediumship readings, psychic readings, etc. But I really want to talk about how ego and changing your approach to it can help you feel calmer in your everyday life, more accepting of who you are and more accepting of others. Obviously, there's going to be caveats to that, but I have found working with people on their ego and just helping them just shape it a little bit more helps in everyday life and everyday situations, a little bit more understanding. I have to give you all a massive thank you. Last week, Beyond the Broomstick hit a new benchmark, or whatever you want to call it. Apparently, I am now in the top 3% of worldwide podcasts for the spirituality and religion section. That has blown my tiny little mind. I have mentioned a few times the fact that, I am a basic medium who loves to teach and explain about mediumship, about the afterlife, about how that connection can bring peace, as well as bringing some spiritual topics to you all. And I am just mind blown. I am just here in central Victoria, living my life, doing my job, a job that I love. And I have just by accident created this following. And I've just got to say a massive thank you. The amount of downloads and the places in the charts, it is just too much to just talk about in detail, but take it from me. You can do anything you want to, and you can do lots of things you didn't want to do or you didn't expect to be doing. It's just sensational. And thank you to all of you. As always, I'm going to kick off this episode to thank my wonderful Patreon supporters. First of all, I'm coming off the back of having an hour coffee morning, as I do every month. I'm going to extend the time. I think today was a little bit too short. I felt it was a bit too fast because there's lots of things I could have talked about. But if you are a Patreon supporter, a paid Patreon member, you do get that hour's coffee morning with me once a month. It's fun. Most of the times we have a really good laugh and it answers spiritual questions. And I try and do it at a time of day that encompasses all the time zones. It's not always possible, so I change it every month. But I'm just off the back of that, and it's wonderful to see people engage and ask their questions. So yeah, I need to give a big shout out to my Patreon members, and thank you all for supporting me and enabling this podcast to continue. We've done a good job, guys. We are a collective, and it is down to you guys, because without you, I can't be doing what I'm doing. But I'm going to kick off with the Patreon shout outs. That's one of the first things I'm going to do. And it'll be in 2 parts because there's a lot of them. So I'm going to split it up. If you don't want to listen to them, as always, fast forward. But you guys that have registered, are paid supporters, thank you. I'm going to be changing things up a little bit over the next month. If you are a current member, do not panic. Your membership will be grandfathered. So you will still have the same price, the same benefits, etc. But I want to change it up. I am finding I am exhausted, but I want to give you value for money. So I'm going to sit down and do that during the next couple of weeks. So if you are one of the cheaper levels, like the $5 level, my advice to you is don't leave it. Okay, because you will get that forever and ever and ever, but it may change in the future. For new members, shall we say. So my Patreon shout outs: Lynn Donahue, Lindsay Villa, Debbie Lynn F, thank you very much. You have subscribed for 12 months. Chase Tucker, Claudia, Marley, Cynthia Lund, April McCool, Kimberly Cantarell, Sweet 75CA, Dip, Brooke Belcher, Piper Riley, Blamps. Piper Riley again, I want you to double check that you are not subscribed twice. Laura, Anthony Harris, Cole J, Diana CW, Courtney N, Sunshine, Jarrett Poor, Kansas Girl, Emily Devine, Jessica Ribeiro, Kim Fields, Chris Hernandez, and Sig. If I have missed anyone, please let me know. There were so many last week that I am worried that I've missed somebody. Send me a message. There will be another round of this later on in the podcast. I just want to split it up into two so people aren't falling asleep during the shout outs because there's so many of them. So what do I mean when I talk about ego in our everyday life? Now, just to recap, I did an episode last year. It talked about how ego works within spiritual work, how we shouldn't lean into our ego and our egoic thoughts, as far as making sure that we listen to our guides for predictions, information, whatever is coming from our guides, and not from our frontal lobe, which can be connected or attached to the outcome of something. So that's what I talk about letting go of ego. Fun fact, there's a couple of psychics that came at me a couple of months ago, and all they were saying was that my readings or my predictions were full of ego. No, they're full of confidence. There is a difference between ego and confidence when it comes to the work that I do. We have to let go of all of our social conditioning, our social assumptions, anything, in order to bring through true messages from spirit. Okay. But when I talk about ego in our everyday life, I talk about ego getting in the way of living freely, living a more harmonious life. Living a harmonious life means that we don't get so angry when people have an opinion. It's just like ego has been at the source of many arguments, fights, wars, conflicts. It is always ego-based. And it can be debilitating when you are holding on to your ego. We all need a little bit of ego. We all need that confidence. We need to make sure that there is a balance. So for instance, when somebody doesn't do something in a timeline that you want them to do it, and you're attached to that outcome of it and you get angry and it causes a fight, it's sometimes switching our thought pattern as to what's going on in their life that's made them late and why is it? Here's a couple of things that may help. And it's easier said than done. I am not denying that, but sometimes when we hold on tightly to our expectations of others and our expectations of ourselves, it can cause a lot of anxiety, and it can cause arguments and fights, and we fail to see and understand where other people are coming from. So when we sit in ego, we want it our way. Imagine, okay, toddlers have no sense of what is right or wrong, or what is his or hers, or why things can't work out the way that things work out. What do? They throw temper tantrums because they get massive emotional overload, and they are overwhelmed because they don't understand and they can't comprehend. Too many adults do that too. I can think of a few, but I don't need to name names. But that's where our ego gets in the way of us enjoying our lives, and it gets us outside of our own opinion as much as possible and can spare us some heartache. Here's things like we are addicted to the approval of others. If you are not going to turn to somebody for their opinion or advice, then why do you need their approval? It's like any other desire in life. We strive to gain it. We relish in it momentarily once we've got it, and set out for more and more and more. It's as gratifying as winning the lottery and having to return the money the next day. The recognition is not the issue. It's the fact that we don't feel good enough without it. So start being that person that recognizes your own wins. Be your own biggest champion. I know some of this is going to be set in that childhood conditioning where you've sought recognition. But if you can work on that, it's going to help you and save you so much heartache. Being great about praising other people. Our subconscious mind doesn't always operate based on what you think is true. It functions based on what it hears. Deliberately identifying opportunities to praise other people is going to help you gradually shift your inner being from quietly self-serving to proudly secure. The most secure people in the world are going to help other people feel secure too. I've told you this story before. I come from a house of insecure male figures, and I don't think my father, in 53 years of my existence, now I have studied more than any of my brothers. I've got a doctorate in behavioral economics, yet I have never had a well done from him. Stopped needing it many years ago, but if we can understand that he does that because he's insecure, then I can understand that I don't need it because I am secure. But yeah, start praising other people. Just because you're not praised doesn't mean to say you can't tell other people how amazing they are. Let go of the false power of anger. Anger is such a horrible thing to hold on to. And the saying goes, you and I all know, the saying is that being angry with other people is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It just eats you up. You're not fooling anyone by raising your voice. Anger is just combative, and sometimes we are angry at the wrong people. We can be having an argument with our wife, our husband, our work colleague, and go to the checkout at the supermarket and take it out on the poor lady that's serving us. It's when we feel threatened and afraid that we look at being angry. So start looking at things very differently and understanding that the way that we react has an effect on other people. Is that other person responsible for the fact that your shoes didn't match this morning, or your car broke down, or you spilt your coffee on your shirt? Start holding your anger in check. Leaning into anger is the fastest route to losing any grip whatsoever on any situation. You give up your ability to cause a different outcome. Instead of lashing out, care for the child inside of you and the child that you are dealing with. You are clearly hurt by something. And come up with a more balanced plan of attack. Being angry removes your power. Leverage the law of attraction. I teach the law of attraction. Increasing it and using it, it helps you. I teach it all the time, and I teach the basics of it along with self-concept. In fact, and this isn't a plug because this is just part of the podcast, but there is a law of attraction event coming up in August. If you can't attend, you will get sent the recording, the workbook, the meditations, all of that will come to you. So don't panic about that. But the law of attraction really helps us understand that the universe hears us. What you put out to the universe, you receive in return. So when most of your questions are centered around what you can get out of life, life typically meets you with a similar demanding nature. Looking for what ways in which you can serve often opens up the doors for others to do the same for you. You must give what you wish to receive. And if you're an arsehole, and if you're going to walk around life being an arsehole and expect something different, then you have got a lot to understand about the universe. Go back and listen to last week's podcast episode where I did talk about surface level spirituality. Working on your ego is one of the ways, and it's not a massive ways. It's not woo-woo. It is really important for you to understand how changing a few aspects of our day-to-day behavior can bring you better outcomes than you've been having. Focus on your inner currency. Now, what that means is that while you may have tangible money in a tangible bank, the same can be said for what's inside your heart and mind. It won't matter how much money you have in savings if there's mostly garbage in your head. The love and compassion that you show yourself and others is the quickest way of making a huge deposit in your spiritual bank account. And it's not a give situation or a give to receive situation, but the kinder you are to people, the kinder people are to you. And I have seen this in real life. It doesn't mean to say that you have to be a pushover. It doesn't mean to say you take away your confidence. But if you're looking at somebody that's serving you at the checkout and that person at the checkout is having a bad day, but you're coming off the back of an argument with your work colleague or your wife or whoever, and you're taking that out on that poor checkout girl, and you don't know what's going on in their day, but by simply saying, have a great day, I hope you're okay, smiling, asking them how they are, that can change so much in their day and you feel good about it. Questioning what you do and why you do it is always a really good way to sort of get your ego in check. We don't know everything, and anyone that thinks they do and don't like to listen to other people's advice or maybe other people's point of view, shall we say, is always a massive issue when it comes to ego. There's a lot of people out there that will they will hear the words that people say in order to answer, in order to give their opinion. They're not actually listening to a lot of things. And that's a real egotistical way to look at things because they're automatically wanting to give their opinion. They don't like to hear what people say. And if we really look at why we do things, starting to hear other people's opinions and points of view, it's a massive thing to open up that possibility that perhaps we are living too much in ego and think we know everything. I know for myself, personal opinion or my own self-growth came many decades ago when I realized that I thought I knew everything. This before I started working in the spiritual field. It's before I really understood myself. And gee, when I started actually listening to other people's advice, not unsolicited advice, to be fair, but actually started hearing the words that people said, I have learned so much, not only about the world and what makes other people tick, but about myself. And that's something that's really, really helped me, so to speak. Just the last one I want to say is, if we can look at other people and see ourselves in others as often as possible, this really helps. The context in which we screw up in life can differ, but we all do it. Everyone does it. Nobody is perfect. It seems like only yesterday we experienced our most spectacular drop of the ball as we pleaded to our higher power for people to show mercy. Much of life is trivial. It's not grandiose or horrific. It's simply there, being, breathing, alone and perplexed. It's hard enough as it is for many of us. Because of the way the human brain is wired, things will get worse if we don't consciously make them better. Given this understanding, we either make things better for others or we allow them to get worse. There's no neutrality. Viewing ourselves as distinct from everyone else is the quickest way to set the ego loose, to spread its turmoil. We're not that different. We all have the same needs. Certain people may be created layer upon layer of protection, but inside, they're still scared kids. The sooner we identify a time when we experienced a similar struggle to what another person is dealing with, the sooner we trade our admonishment for love and care, the ultimate victory for authentic self over ego. That is the reality, that it is our authentic self over ego. But that doesn't mean to say that we can't have self-confidence. We can't be confident about who we are and show our confidence. There is a difference, as I have said, in being a spiritual practitioner and allowing ego to infiltrate our predictions, our work, our help for others, our being of service, and ego in the everyday context of understanding others and perhaps we are not so alone, and allowing ourselves to be a little bit more vulnerable in life. I have seen some spiritual practitioners that will throw a temper tantrum and say, but I do all this for you. I use my gift. I don't like using the word gift because it is very egoic. I use my gift to help everyone else and nobody helps me, blah, 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 blah. That is not how we are supposed to practice. If we are practicing, I give freely, especially the work that I do on other platforms. Yeah, I charge for my work, but that allows me then to practice freely and people make the choice whether they come to me for a reading or not. But as far as egoic work in a spiritual practice, we need to remove that in our delivery. But living ego-free is a service to all humanity that all humanity can practice. I've recommended many times a book called The Four Agreements. I love this book. It is eye-opening. It can pertain to some religion, so I just removed the word God for your God and your choices. But I would recommend anybody trying to work out difficult relationships, friendships, why they feel alone, why they can't get into that authentic self, to have a read of it. It's very cheap. It's on Amazon. I will link it in the show notes to help. But try and have a read of that, because I think it's one of the most worthwhile books that you can read to set yourself on the start of a spiritual pathway. So before I continue, I'm going to do the next round of shout outs for new Patreon members. Thank you so much. Belinda, Misery, Cherry, Jessica, Sunny, Vicky Kintop, Stephanie J. Ralston, D. Joy Peacock, Professor Vint, I can't get this. I'm going to say Heather, and thank you for subscribing to 12 monthly. Tawny, Stacey, Chrissy, Lila, Kathy, Cassandra, Rainbows and Sunshine Girl, Danielle Gibson, Bianca, Cameron, Melanie, Pilu, Rhonda, The Loving Diet, Hayley Moshita, Valerie, Sarah, Energy Nikki, Cindy, Amber, Amy, Susan, Haley, Cindy, Precious, Brenna Marie has subscribed to 12 monthly, Miles Evans, Liz B, Natalie, Denna, Snow, Desiree DeBoos, Trey, Andrea, thank you for subscribing 12 monthly, Betty E. Willis, Robin and Gramaggi. You guys rock. Thank you so much. That is the end of the Patreon shout-outs for this week. So just to finish up on the discussion about ego, if you can reduce your ego by listening to your gut a little bit more, if you get that feeling in your gut when you're nervous about something, those are great moments to identify when your ego is manifesting. If you have this feeling of discomfort when you would be nervous around people, their judgment, it's a fear, listen to your gut. We tend to be very harsh on ourselves, and that as well is our ego getting in the way of us achieving things. So when we fear judgment, when we fear failure, when we fear the reaction of others, that is our ego stopping us from actually achieving something. We don't realize how much our ego can affect us achieving amazing things. The benefits of reducing your ego is just boundless. You will live a life that is far more honest about who you are and far more authentic. Reducing the ego will make you more productive, since you will have a real understanding of your abilities, and you will set yourself up for real progress instead of fearing that judgment, fearing that failure. We don't need to eliminate ego completely. But in our everyday lives, there will be moments when the ego will get in the way. What you need to do is identify those moments when it happens and work not to make the same mistake again. We are all human. We are all having our human existence. And therefore we're going to make mistakes. So don't be too hard on yourself, but try and change it next time it happens. You may not notice the changes immediately, but people around you will definitely notice them. They will help you live a calmer, more centered, more authentic life. It doesn't mean to say that you are going to be a rollover for people, that you're going to allow people to walk all over you. That is not what living without ego is. It's that you no longer have the same reactions to other people's judgment, other people's decisions. And you're able to look at them and say, well, that's on them. Their behavior is about them. It's nothing to do with me. And that gives you so much peace. Believe me, I've been there, I've traveled it, I've walked the walk, and the difference is night and day. So if you can, give it a go. Obviously, I want everyone to be safe and make sure that if you are living in a situation that you are at risk at all, then you do what is best for you. But on an everyday basis, with our work, with the people around us, when we are reactionary to them, we really have to ask ourselves, why are we reacting to their behaviour, and what hold does their behaviour have on me, and what effect on my ego does that have? Hope that helps. So let's talk about current affairs. It is going to be a little bit tumultuous. I don't know whether you follow me on social media, but you will have seen a post that I made about things happening in August and September that I have been shown. It is dicey. It is not going to be pleasant. I'm going to be honest with you. And as we roll through to October, and as I have said, I see some nasty weather coming in to the eastern seaboard during October. I feel like it's going to just ramp up towards that a little bit. I give exactly the information that I get. I can't always give you in-depth information. That's not how it works. I just know and feel that certain things are going to happen in certain areas, and it can be quite difficult not being able to give you more information. I seriously am questioning my decisions at times to put predictions on social media. Not gonna lie, I find it quite the response is quite difficult to deal with. I understand that people can be worried, but if you live in a hurricane area or you live in an earthquake area, you get yourself prepared. That's all I can say, because it's going to be seismic over the next 2 to 3 months. It's not going to stop after 2 to 3 months, but you're going to notice that ramp up over the next 2 to 3 months, and it's going to be quite difficult weather-wise. But be careful, be prepared. That's all I can say to you. What I do see coming in, and I want to talk about is, and I talked about this on my coffee morning. So if you are a Patreon member, don't forget I have a coffee morning once a month. You just have to follow the Zoom link that's in Patreon, and you get to have an hour chat with me whilst we have our morning coffee or evening glass of wine, whichever side of the world you were in at that time. There is going to be some major problems in the Trump camp in the next couple of months. I still don't see him being the candidate. I don't know why. I don't see it. I am going to stand by that prediction. But what I am going to say is this. He is spiraling, and part of the reason he is spiraling because of the VP pick. He did not pick JD Vance. 1,000,000%. He did not pick JD Vance. He was foisted upon him, and I think JD Vance is out to sabotage Trump because the far right do not want Trump in power. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why I've been shown this, but that is what I have been shown. Coming in, I want to focus a little bit more on Australia today, because I've been shown a few things around Australia. One of them is that there is going to be some major problems within the water around the Great Barrier Reef. Damage is done by a boat or an incident there. I feel like Darwin and the top end is going to be rocked by a largest earthquake. I don't think it's in a town centre, I'm going to be honest, but I'm not completely sure. I feel like it may be more outback, but it is going to be large, but not cause the damage that past ones have. So that's a good thing. And I want to reiterate that I have said that there will be an election called in the next 6 weeks. which seems really strange for the end of the year. Hopefully my timing is off, but I feel like there's an election about to be called, and I just don't think that Albanese is going to get in again. Don't forget that August the 3rd, this weekend, the link is in my show notes. Laurie Rivers from the Awake Space and I are having an event that is going to predict out until the end of the year. When we work together, it is magic. Laurie is an astrologer. She is able to dig deep by pulling up charts. I will get her to pull up charts for a certain area if I get an inkling around that. We will be looking at weather, earthquakes, elections, all of those things that you all have interest in. And that is August, September, October, November, December, 5 months. 5 months worth of predictions. The link is in my bio. If you are a $15 and up member of my Patreon, you will get 50% off. You can find that in the discounts in the collections. You will get 50% off the event. If you cannot attend because of the time it is being held, you will be sent a recording within 48 hours. But get in now and book. There are a handful of seats left. But that's about it from me this week. Take care. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for all your support. And I will speak to you next week.